So I just checked out Destroy All Neighbors, which stars Jonah Ray as William Brown, a struggling rock musician who finds himself in a living nightmare when he accidentally kills Vlad, played by Alex Winters, the neighbor from hell. Now I went into this movie knowing absolutely nothing. This is a new Shudder original, and when you have a movie or TV show from Shudder, it's like a box of chocolates. You never know what you're going to get. Sometimes you get the best of it, and sometimes you get the worst of it. This movie kind of falls right in the middle for me. I love that I got creative with the rock horror elements, and that is where it was kind of getting me a little bit more intrigued. I thought Jonah Ray was great as somebody that is trying to get this album done, who has been working on it for about 3 years, and that is everything that he's dedicated his life to. He's dedicated his life to finishing this album that he's been working on for a long time. And then you also have his other collaborator who's a bit of a dick, and his girlfriend that he doesn't give a lot of attention to. So once he gets his new neighbor who's basically just bumping music 24/7, and he's trying to focus on trying to get this album done and take a shot every single time he says I need to get this album done, you're probably going to be wasted by the time that this movie is over, because that's really the only thing you know about this guy is the fact that he's so focused on this album that he has to finish this album. There's nothing else that matters to him besides finishing this album, and at times it does get a little bit repetitive. But once we get into the horror aspect of this movie, I thought it did some creative things that I was not really expecting, but at the same time, I kind of wish it did a little bit more and used a little bit more of that rock element, because those elements is what made this movie absolutely work. But once we get rolling into the horror elements, that is where the movie gets a little bit more creative. They're able to do a little bit more with that aspect, and so on those aspects I really enjoyed it. However, what I really kind of wish I had a little bit more of was a little bit more of that rock horror. Once we get into the main thread of what's actually going on, and him developing into madness, going on an accidental killing spree, I wanted a little bit more of that infused, but we really don't get a lot of that. And once we get into the third act of the movie, I think that is where it starts to falter for me a little bit, because there are elements about it that don't make sense, or I probably didn't really understand it all too well. But when you have a movie like this where it's trying to mix in the horror and the rock elements, I think that is where the clashing of the movie absolutely works. And I think that is where some people will absolutely have a lot of fun with it. For me, this was a decent little film. I thought it was a wonderful surprise. There are elements about this movie that I really enjoyed. Kind of wish they got a little bit more creative, but overall, it was something that I was not really expecting. There are twists and turns here and there that I liked, but kind of wish they explored a little bit more on. But overall, it's definitely one that I think you should definitely check out. Not perfect or great, but I think it's pretty decent if you're a horror fan or a fan of rock. But those are my thoughts on Destroy All Neighbors. Go ahead and drop your thoughts in the comments below if you have checked it out or if you're planning on checking it out. And I'll catch you guys on the next review.